It's Staub time in Boulder, Colorado. Coach Prime has finally announced our new starter, or maybe not. The boys are here to talk about it.
This is Voice of the Bus, Mark Johnson, and you're listening to the Folsom Frenzy Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Folsom Frenzy Podcast. My name's Chase. I'm here with Topher, Sreyas, and Jake. We've got a whole crew doing a special episode for you midweek. We never do this. We normally can't even be bothered to get an episode out once a week. And here we are with the breaking news. QB3 is QB1. Ryan Staub announced the starter. We had just talked about this on Sunday about who we thought might start, who we thought should start. But it's not totally clear, right? Like Coach Prime has also said that he hasn't actually made a plan. He said he has a plan, but that Staub, everyone's seen Staub play. Staub got all the first team reps. There's that ESPN report. A lot of controversy here, but it seems like Staub is the guy at least going to Houston. Everyone's initial thoughts. What you got?
Yeah, you said it best. He's obviously the starter, or is he? So even watching Coach Prime's press conference today, he was so complimentary of Ryan Staub, so complimentary, like directly, not even mentioning the other guys, right? Like talking about how he's always been a great presence in the locker room, how he's always had the respect of all of his teammates, and how all of his ex-teammates either tweeted or reached out to him. We saw Savion Wilkerson tweet about him. We saw Zay Weaver give him a call afterwards. I mean, reading between the lines, it's all right there for you to see. But on the other hand, maybe this is all just gamesmanship so that we can come out and send Caden Salter out there in Houston's game plan for something completely different, right? We're talking about 4D chess, guys. Jake, what do you think? Come on.
I think it's gamesmanship and the fact that Coach Prime doesn't want Houston to prep for Staub, but Staub is definitely the starter. The guy from ESPN that reported it, I'm blanking on his name, is a very credible source. I think he broke the news for Pete Thamel, yeah. He's broken a lot of Buffs news, so I think it's definitely credible. I think Staub's going to be the starter. And I feel bad for Caden slightly, right? He came in, and I'm sure he got a big NIL package, and the goal was for him to lead CU to the promised land after Shedeur left. And I do think he got a fair shake, but, football's such a finicky game, right? Like that first drive Staub had started because of a great third down run. And if they didn't bust off a big run there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And, even like Juju, if he made that pass to Draylon, we might be having this conversation about Juju. And the thing is, Salter didn't have an awful game last game. I mean, his first two drives were scoring drives. He had 10 points off the board. And, you throw him in at the end, he didn't really do much there. But that's kind of hard because he wasn't in his mojo, and he just saw Staub he'd go off, and he's probably rattled at that point. So I feel bad for Salter, but look, I think this is the right move. I think Staub is kind of that feel-good story, and he looked like the most polished quarterback out there.
Yeah, before we let Topher go here, I'll also say for Staub, he was put in my opinion, the toughest situation of the three quarterbacks on Saturday. He was put into the game cold after not having really played a competitive football game in 2 years, basically since the Utah game when Shedeur had a back injury, and CU was only up 3 points. And so now you're not only talking about getting playing time and needing to play well, but now you're talking about if you play poorly, you might lose an absolute stink bomb of a game. So if we're going to compare being thrown in bad positions, I get why people make that claim about Salter, and I agree. He was put in a really unfortunate position to come in after having lost his momentum, and now he sees the third stringer ball out, and he knows everyone can hear the student section. I mean, those of you who haven't been to Folsom Field and haven't seen it on TV closely, the sidelines are really narrow, so everything that you hear the fans say is right on top of you. There's no hiding it. So I'm sure that was a tough position, but if anything, if we're going to make that comparison, Staub was put in a much worse position and he flourished. So that's a feather in his cap to me. All right, Topher, what you got?
Yeah, I think I see this and I agree with you guys. I think Staub is the guy going forward. My biggest concern is that it wasn't Prime coming out and saying that Staub is the starter. It was someone else breaking it. And I think it's kind of a big deal, right? If I'm a coach and I'm like, we have the edge right now where Houston does not know who we're going to start, and I don't want that getting out. And now it has gotten out. It has been broken on Tuesday. So now Houston has Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to prep for Staub rather than prep for Salter or prep for both. And so I'm disappointed that that's how it broke, but I think it is the right decision moving forward. And just like Jake said, I do feel really bad for Caden. He did everything that he was asked, but I also look back and I think it's not 100% his fault, right? We've all said it. The play calling was not good. And I think that's more evident in the fact that, Pat Shurmur is someone that has played or called offenses and worked with offenses in the NFL for his entire career. And in the NFL, you have offenses where the guy's legs are kind of a cherry on top, not an integral part of the game. And I think Salter's legs need to be an integral part of the game. And I just don't think Pat Shurmur knows how to call a game for a quarterback like that. With that being said, Pat Shurmur knows how to call a game for Staub. And so that's why Staub needs to be the guy going forward, regardless of how bad you feel for Caden moving forward.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think the thing that was most impressive to me about Staub is in that post-game press conference or interview, I guess, where he was standing with Coach Prime, and he said, all I needed was an opportunity. And I think that's awesome. Like, I think it's very Tom Brady-esque where he got the chance and he didn't give it up, right? And so we'll see. Who knows? Maybe he'll put up an absolute stinker against Houston. But I think Staub is really compelling, and I agree, Topher. I think he provides Pat Shurmur with a quarterback that he can work with and that works better for his schemes. And I think Staub is like sneaky, mobile, able to get some rushing yards as well. So I think that'll be an underrated part of his game looking forward. But overall, I think, it's a good point, Topher, that maybe we wanted to keep it under wraps. I think it's a little ridiculous and a little bit theatric where, they want to pretend like you don't know who the injured group is going to be or who the starting quarterback is. At the end of the day, Houston's going to prepare for Staub, right? I think anyone and everyone knew at least that was a possibility, but there's also not a lot of film on Staub, right? So we'll see how relevant that is moving into that game, but interesting opportunity. I think Colorado actually moved from a -3 or a +3 to a +6 on the news. I don't know if that was totally related, but it was interesting that the betting markets at least think that Ryan Staub is a big down, or at least we're 3 points worse than Caden Salter. So we'll see. Hopefully the books pay for that badly.
Yeah. Another thing Coach Prime said during his press conference, which I thought was really interesting because I didn't predict this when we chatted after the Delaware game, is he said, someone asked him about using multiple quarterbacks, and he said something along the lines of, I don't want to play musical chairs with my quarterbacks. It sounded like he wanted to go with one quarterback for this game, which is fascinating because when he said right after the Delaware game, I got a plan, I'm just not going to tell y'all. I thought it was going to be you start Staub, have a short leash, pull him, bring in Salter, give him a couple drives, which I don't think is the right solution, but it sounds like he's going to stick with just Staub. He might still have a short leash. I'm curious what you guys think, and curious if you guys think this is the right move. But I just thought that was an interesting piece. I didn't really think he'd say something like that.
I think when it comes to every difficult decision, it's easy to continue to want to gather data all the time and second guess your decision all the time. But ultimately, the best way to make a stable path forward is to be decisive and just pick a path forward. With Delaware, and I understand that some people see the Delaware game as being indecisive and playing three different quarterbacks and seeing what you got. Delaware is the time to do that. That is the one game on your schedule against a upstart first-year FBS team where you have the opportunity to evaluate those different quarterbacks in a game like sitting, much like an NFL preseason game. But we're talking about a Big 12 game here, guys. This is a Big 12 game. So now all these games count. You don't sit back and pretend that the Big 12 games don't matter anymore, right? These are super, super important. So I would totally be on board with just sticking with one quarterback, at least for one game, right? Unless there's injuries or something of that nature that necessitates a change. I'm big on being decisive, and I really hope that it pans out that way. I would hate to see another quarterback. You can't mess around at this point when you're talking about a game that actually really matters to your broader goals about, all right, first quarter, first two possessions, I'm going to play this guy, and the next next 2 possessions I'll play this guy. Like, that's not the time for it. And I really hope, and I don't think that that's the case. And reading between what Coach Prime says, I think he just got one guy, and he's going to proceed that way.
Real quick, Chase, before you go, just to follow up on that, do you think he'll do that the following game versus Wyoming? Because I think he will. Like, I think we'll see Juju in there and probably Salt.
It depends on what happens against Houston.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, if we get absolutely the barn doors blown off, which some people out there, I'm not going to name names, maybe on this podcast, maybe not, have said off the record might happen. So
you can tell by who's laughing the least.
So if that does happen, I could see the Wyoming game as another opportunity, and maybe not even just rotating quarterbacks, but rotating skill positions in other areas, maybe even rotating trench positions. We saw Brandon Davis Swain at the media interview today, and we know that, and he's a pretty upstart player, and so now these other types of guys who are maybe thinking coming the season or death pieces are going to jump at the opportunity to play more. So I could see, depending on the outcome against Houston, the Wyoming game potentially being used as another kind of learning point, especially if Wyoming is as bad as they were last year, which they seem to be somewhat improved.
I'm a buyer of Wyoming. I want to put that out there. I think Wyoming's actually improved this year. I'll own it. I am the person who said we're going to get hammered. However, so we recorded and I said I think it's going to be a 7-point game. Then I decided that we were going to get absolutely annihilated by Houston. And then I proceeded to absolutely hammer the Buffs at +6 when I saw my Lord and Savior was starting at quarterback. Now, that being said, I think, to address your original question.
Just kidding.
I think with kickers and quarterbacks, it is very important that you give a lot of leash and that you allow them to go out there and ball out and not have to be looking over their back constantly if they make a decision, right? And I think about like with Salter, right? If Salter were to go out there and knew that he was on a super short leash, I don't know if he's going to try those deep throws that he ends up overthrowing every time, right? But I think you need a quarterback that is confident that they're not going to get benched if they make if they have to try to make a play. And I think that's really important in this context. So I'm hopeful that Coach Prime will give Staub a good amount of leash. I think he's earned it. I think he deserves it. I think he played well in that Utah game. I remember, we talked about it last season when that Utah game happened. We went, wow, he's actually not bad. And so I think, or 2 years ago, I guess, right? Against an actually good Utah team. But I think generally speaking, that's somewhere where we need to be really careful. And I think the carousel has to stop. And I think Coach Prime understands that, right? I actually don't think there's going to be a whole lot of carousel against Wyoming. If it's garbage time and we're blowing them out, I think he'll give someone an opportunity to get in there. Hopefully Juju, not Caden. I think if you've made the decision that you're moving on from Caden, I think you have to make that decision. And I would not be surprised. Here's my hot take prediction. I would not be surprised in the next 2 weeks if we see either Juju or Caden essentially redshirting into the portal. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for. I think in today's world, if you realize that you're not going to be the guy that's getting the opportunity, you start shopping yourself earlier rather than later. But I think regardless, we need to make a decision and make it quickly. And I think Coach Prime's going to do that and stick with our guy.
Is that even an option for Caden? I don't know how that works.
I don't know either.
He was at Liberty for 4 seasons.
I was thinking about that during my commute home today. I was
transfer.
like, if he pretends that he has like a hamstring injury, he could potentially I mean, this stuff happens all the time, right? Like he could just say, "Oh, I tore my hamstring, medical red shirt." I mean, the NCAA is getting sued for anything left and right. I'm sure he could get an extra year of eligibility if he wanted.
Yeah, I'm curious your guys' thoughts on how we got here. Like, is it the right move? Just looking at both K-Salt and Staub and even Juju, because I was going back and looking at the tape from Staub, even in the Utah game back 2 years ago when he was a true freshman, right? Even that game, he looked pretty darn good. There were a couple touchdowns that called back that he threw some dimes. He has really good confidence over the middle, and he has pretty good accuracy. So that makes me excited. The whole storyline makes me excited. One other piece that I think folks aren't talking about enough too is Salter did a good job of not turning over the football. No turnovers. First time in CU history. He might have fumbled. Did he fumble? Okay. So I think it was first time in CU history there's been no turnovers for CU in the first 2 games, if I remember right. I think Coach Prime said that in a press conference. And I mean, we got to give Salters flowers for that. And I bet there'll be an interception this game. That's my prediction by Staub. But I still think Staub, I have confidence in Staub. But I just think he might be a little jittery coming out there. But curious what you guys think of Staub, just like looking at the highlights again from the game and even that Utah game.
Quick counterpoint. If you only throw bubble screens, you're not going to throw a whole lot of interceptions, right?
Yes,
so like,
you will. Yes, you will.
Oh, yeah, you will.
The other team
Delaware was this close to pick
but
six in that first one.
comparatively,
year.
if you're not trying to force it downfield, right, you're going to throw more interceptions that way. So I think part of that might be the fact that we had, kind of questionable play calling. So I have to throw that out there.
I guarantee you,
predictability
bubble
and play
screen
calling.
against Houston, it's a pick 6.
Bubble
I guarantee
screens
it.
and overthrowing receivers by 30 yards, you're not going to throw a lot of interceptions, right? So yes, you should get his flowers,
True,
absolutely.
true.
But when you're throwing it
True.
80 yards past anyone relevant, I think that's different and worth considering. But anyway, Topher, what you got?
Yeah. So to the point of the picks, it's predictability, right? So if you look back on both of Sincere's long bombs, the corners sat on it because they were expecting the hitch. Like that's how predictable Pat Shurmur's gotten. So I also think that if you remember one of Staub's first throws was almost a pick 6, right? We're a couple inches away from being like, yeah, Salter's got to be the guy because that was an absolutely back-breaking turnover.
Was that the one where the wide receiver, it was like a hitch route and the wide receiver could have
Correct.
came up closer to get it? Yeah. I think that was
Correct.
partially the wide receiver's fault too, not completely on Staub,
Absolutely.
but partially on Staub for sure.
But like Staub is someone that's going to put the ball in more risk, right? He's going to push the ball. He's not afraid of tighter windows, and I think he showed that, which has its benefits for sure. Definitely has its drawbacks, and it's just kind of the type of team we want to be. I just don't think that Salter has shown enough capability of sustainability in the offense to be okay with just being a game manager rather than someone that's going to be able to move our offense efficiently down the field.
And we beat this to death a little bit on the episode we recorded a couple days ago. And Coach Prime mentioned it himself, so I'll say it again. I love the fact that Staub has the confidence to change the play at the line of scrimmage. That is huge. What I love that Coach Prime said that made me feel even better about it is he said that is what he expected Staub to do. That is what he expected him to do. It almost makes you wonder, not to be a Pat Shurmur defender in honor of Chase falling off that bandwagon. But
we have a new one.
It almost makes you wonder if going into the situation, you're expecting that your quarterback has the authority and the means to go up there, read the defense, and change the play, yet it never happens, and then the default play is just a check down. It makes you wonder whether there's like a disconnect between the way that the offense is being operated and then the way that it's being intended to, and it just continues to be, we're just going to do the most conservative thing possible because we're not confident enough to make that change. Because the first time we saw it happen, like clearly saw it happen, maybe Caden was doing it against Georgia Tech, and maybe he was doing it in the first couple drives against Delaware. But the first time we really know for sure that it happened, it resulted in a 69-yard touchdown pass. Makes you wonder.
I mean, it's a good point, but I think that whole comment on we expected it is just lip service. Is Coach Prime covering his butt because he tends to do that sometimes. If you expected Staub to get 2 touchdowns on his first 2 drives, why isn't he starting? Right?
Oh, I don't think he was referring to the touchdown passes. I think he was referring to reading the defense, seeing that the DBs were in press coverage, and then saying, okay, just go deep then. That's what I think. I don't think it has anything to do with the execution. I think it has everything to do with putting yourself in the position to make the play.
You know what, Shreyas? That's a great point. I'm back on the Pat Shurmur train. I'm back.
So back.
I doubted, but you know what? That's such a good point. I should never have doubted. He scored 30-something points last week.
I apologize to the nation for unleashing this monstrosity.
Oh, man.
I'm not back. I can't do it anymore. It's exhausting. But who knows? Maybe after Houston, I'll be back again.
I'm clipping that. I'm cutting you off. I'm just going to think you're back.
Had us in the first half, not going to lie.
Yeah. So I have a hypothetical. Let's say Staub goes out there, balls out, beats Houston. Where do we stand with Juju Lewis? What happens with Juju next year? Like, you got to keep Staub as the starter. He'll probably be let's say he's the starter for the rest of the season. What happens with Juju? Does he leave? And I guess we won't know that answer, but I think it's kind of fun to hypothesize. And like, how do you handle that situation? I think you still got to give Juju reps to develop him, kind of similar to how Texas did with Manning. But I'm just kind of curious. Like, I'm sure that's in the back of these coaches' minds. And it's a decision that I don't envy the coaches making to make Staub the starter, because I think it's a tough decision and it's multifaceted.
Yeah,
I want to hear what Topher thinks first, or Chase. One of you guys.
Just really quickly, I was just gonna say, I think a decision's gonna have to be made. I don't know if it has to be made now. I think you can see how the season goes. I think, especially if they change the portal window, and we haven't talked about that, but it's possible that they'll be changing the portal to just January and only for 6 days or not even. I think at that point you're gonna have to decide, is Staub our guy moving forward, or is Juju the guy? You're gonna have to pick one or the other, because you can't keep both. And I think if Staub has a whole season of experience under his belt, it would be disservice of him if we were not to move forward with him to not have him transfer out. Then again, they thought he was going to transfer out last year and he didn't, right? So I think for Coach Prime, though, Staub is what he wants in a player, right? Staub is someone who is willing to wait his time and work his ass off and earn his position and all those things. But to answer your hypothetical, I mean, I think you just have to be realistic about it. If Juju does not think he's going to be able to start next year, he's going to make the decision for him. And because it's so easy to transfer and go get paid elsewhere, there are tons of programs that would love to have Juju Lewis and can have him start immediately next season. And I just think it's unrealistic to think, any other belief is just pure hope and happenstance, not actually.
I think you're right. And it's just such a wild place that we're in, that Juju could transfer out because he won't be the starter next year.
Because Carl Durrell recruited a better quarterback. That's the craziest part. That's the craziest part. Everything else, yeah.
And I hope the coaching staff didn't give him like a lump sum NIL payment. It needs to be like over a certain amount of years. I'm hoping our staff is getting smart with that, because I'm sure the rest of college football is. But it's just crazy to think about.
I think you got to make a clear decision and be like, if we're going to move on from Salter, you go to Juju and Staub and be like, Juju's going to get reps, right? Juju's for sure going to get reps this year, and we're going to rep him as much as he can without burning your red shirt. And that's really going to be how we're going to decide. And then come springtime, we'll let you know if Staub or Juju's the guy. And I don't think that's any dig at Staub, because I think Staub's going to be good enough to go anywhere else. Into any program that you want to get to. And once you're there, he's going to go do his thing. But I think that Juju could be good enough and have a high enough ceiling that you go, I'm sorry to Staub. We see the potential in Juju, and we're trying to build a program around Juju, and we'll get you glowing recommendation. Make sure you land somewhere on your feet.
Yeah, we have to be realistic about it. That's just what happens now. Like, look at all of the Ohio State and Georgia quarterbacks that shuffled around. And a lot of them have successful NFL careers. Like Justin Fields is the starting quarterback. Where is he now? I can't remember. I already forgot.
The Jets. He had the swaggiest touchdown on Sunday.
So there he is. And then Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow. You go up and down the list. Like, this is the new norm. And I get that Quinn Ewers hasn't had and probably not going to pan out in the NFL at this point, but he was another example, right? Originally an Ohio State guy and then ended up at Texas. You have to be realistic. I mean, when you're talking about recruiting a 5-star out of high school, and this is why I'm generally not huge on high school recruiting anymore, because if you put yourself in a position to get a high school recruit, the way that the portal works now is you are ripe to have that exact person go somewhere else after you spend a year developing him, and he's just going to go ahead and have a ton of success elsewhere. So at the end of the day,
Jordan Tyson.
Yeah. Oh God, Jordan. Yeah. So Jordan Tyson's a great example of that, and he actually did play really well here in his 1 year before he got hurt. So kind of it's unfortunate. It's the unfortunate way of the lay of the land right now. And if you're Coach Prime, like, this is just my opinion, you focus on winning now. And if you prove that you have a sustainable program that doesn't just require a unicorn Heisman Trophy winner that plays both ways and the best passing quarterback statistically that the program's ever had in its history, maybe you can build something even better moving forward. And whoever gives you the best chance to win right now is what matters this year.
And what a blessing to have, right? Like, what a great problem to have. Oh, we have two quarterbacks that might, we might have a quarterback that's better than the 5-star we recruited, and so we might lose our 5-star, right? It's not our 5-star's leaving because he's absolutely ill because of how bad the team's going, a la the last year with Carl Durrell, right, where everyone left because they saw the absolute dumpster fire that was the program. And so I think that the worst case scenario is that Ryan Staub is so good that we have to move on or let Juju walk if he wants to walk, right? Like, that's a great problem to have. I hope we have that problem because that means we won a lot of football games this year. And I think at that point you have to make a business decision, right? But at the end of the day, I don't think you can self-sabotage, because at the end of the day, I think we all agreed from this, Juju did not look ready on Saturday, right? He looks like a 17 or an 18-year-old, right? And so I think he needs more time to develop. 17-year-old, right? So he needs time to develop. It looked like he was getting frustrated. I think the talent is clearly there. I have no doubt that he'll be incredibly successful. But if Staub is winning football games, then I don't think you can think about, oh, well, we really want to get our 17-year-old freshman into the game because we don't want him to transfer. I think that's something that you have to cross that bridge when you get to it.
Yeah. And that could be something to watch for in the second half of the season, depending on how the first half goes. You hate to be thinking about rebuilding or something of that nature, but sometimes that's the reality of the situation. And we've seen it, unfortunately, happen way too often here at Boulder over our time being fans. So, this is going to be a week-by-week interesting thing. That's one of the great things about this era in CU football. It's nonstop entertainment.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it any better. Switching gears a bit, the other recent news since we last recorded, I'll talk about them together because they might be related. Who knows? But Brandon Davis-Swain took the podium today, and someone asked Coach Prime about him, and he just said he's a hard worker, and he's finally getting it. He thought the workouts were fun, but Coach Prime is like, no, they need to be hard work, and he's finally getting it. He's working his tail off. And he said towards the end, he said something about we got a surprise for Brandon Davis-Swain. So I wanted to talk.
Oh, we lost you, Jake.
Lost Jake.
As he was about to hook us with what he wanted to talk about.
Is he back?
So I think, for Jake, I'll say, I think the rumor at least is that he might be going both ways, right? Like a potential Travis Hunter 2.0. And we know that it works in Boulder.
Am I back?
Jake. Yep, there he is.
So yeah, potentially both ways in the goal line package. He did play tight end in high school, or it could just be a better number, right? I know that's a big thing for Coach Prime, the lower numbers. So that came out, as well as I wanted to loop in the Cam Michael news as well, because it could be related. Cam Michael posted on his Instagram story a gray jersey, which typically signifies going both ways. We know Cam Michael is one of the top recruits in CU history. He was a very highly touted 4-star, I want to say, borderline 5-star. He has tremendous speed and size, but hasn't been able to get out there because our wide receiver group is stacked, at least in theory. We haven't really seen that quite yet. So yeah, Cam Michael could be going both ways. I think on a well-off video, Robert Livingston was working with him. And back in high school, a lot of teams were recruiting him as a corner. So both of those guys could be going both ways. Just wanted to open up. You guys can talk about either guy. What do you guys think? Chase, I'll start with you just because I'm looking at you first.
I would love Cam Michael to play corner. I think he is incredibly talented, and I think we could definitely use some help there. And he's only a freshman, right? So he could develop into that position. I think that's super exciting. I have no idea if Brandon Davis-Swain is actually going to be playing offense. I have no idea where it's going to be, other than if he's playing like fullback or running back and just going to charge in. I hope they do some goofy trick play, but because I'm no longer a Pat Schumer believer, I simply don't believe he has the creativity to actually create a play like that. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I would love for us to do things like that. I think those are the things that I wish Coach Prime's very old school, right? But the creativity is sometimes maybe not quite there, or it doesn't feel like it's always at the level that it would be kind of fun to watch and surprise some opponents. So I think it's cool that they're experimenting and trying to figure it out. And especially it would never hurt to have additional depth in our secondary. So I'm all for it, and I can't wait to see what it ends up being.
I think this is a direct response to how our secondary looked against Delaware. You go, okay, Cam, let's see what you can do out there, because clearly what we had in the slot receiver in man coverage was not it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. He has crazy speed, and that's a big part of being able to play DB in these days.
The one area where I'll maybe pump the brakes. I'm excited to see it too, and I think it could be great. But even talented freshman DBs typically struggle a little bit. We saw it with Nico Reed before he transferred to Oregon. We saw a little bit of Christian Gonzalez in his first year, although Christian Gonzalez did break into the scene pretty hot. So maybe that could be a great example of a model that Cam Michael could follow. But then we also kind of saw it with guys like Colton Hood and DJ McKinney at the start of last year versus where they were at the end of last year. And now Colton Hood is one of the best DBs in the NCAA right now with Tennessee. And obviously DJ McKinney, we have high hopes for him here. So happy to see it. It could be a great move, but then I just do worry about playing a true freshman in that kind of like a leading DB role on one side of the field due to her issues. And there's going to be a lot of baptism by fire with that. So we'll see what comes of it, but excited to put talent out there.
Yeah, so we as a podcast are going to be starting to do new things and start publishing some articles, just kind of writing things down of our opinions so that we can reference back and start to build some credibility. We do have a Substack. It is folsomefrenzypodcast.substack.com. We just have our first article, which is already outdated because it's talking about who we think will start this weekend. And obviously, if you've made it to the end of the episode, we all know that Staub is starting this weekend. So go and give us a subscribe, help us grow.
Not necessarily starting though, Topher. I don't know if you listen to Coach Brian. Could be anyone. Maybe Cam Michael is starting at quarterback this week. It literally could be anyone.
I think it's Draylon or Mate too.
If you are the Houston defensive coordinator listening to our
Damon
podcast,
Greaves for quarterback. I love it. Oh my God, Damon Greaves for Heisman. Damon Greaves for Heisman.
He's gonna do it he's gonna do it all. Oh man.
All right, well,
Ryan
I'll close it out.
Actually tweeted that Damon Greaves for Heisman.
Thank you everyone for listening. Please give us a follow, X, YouTube, I guess Substack now, wherever you find that. And we'll be back with our normal episode coming this Sunday after the Buffs take down the horrible Houston Cougars. Go Buffs.
Let's go Buffs.
Leave us a comment. Who do you think should be starting? Is Staub the right choice?
Smooth. Nice. Go Buffs.